Hello, Ketchup crew. Welcome to the weekly Ketchup on YouTube, where we bring you the biggest news of the week in movies and TV. This week, we'll talk about the possibility of the Invisible Man reviving the Dark Universe and what the new Batmobile says about next year's The Batman. Plus, we're celebrating amazing female directors in honor of International Women's Day. It's gonna be fun. Here we go.
He said that wherever I went, he would find me, walk right up to me, and I wouldn't be able to see him.
Well, wouldn't you know it, The Invisible Man was actually seen by a lot of people, according to the box office. So now that it's officially a hit with both critics and fans, let's take a look at what that could mean for the future of the Dark Universe right now on the Ketchup. The Invisible Man, which is certified fresh and currently has a strong audience score of 88%, is the latest reboot in the world of the Universal classic monsters, which date all the way back to the 1920s and also includes characters like Frankenstein, Dracula, and the Mummy. Squad goals.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
So it's actually no surprise that a while back, Universal tried to go the way of the MCU and create a connected universe with these iconic monsters called the Dark Universe. It kinda sorta kicked off with 2014's rotten Dracula Untold starring Luke Evans, and then came to a screeching halt a few years later with Tom Cruise's The Mummy. After the big budget film had a poor box office showing in the US and was horribly received by critics and fans, Universal chairwoman Donna Langley ultimately called the idea of a connected dark universe a failed experiment, kind of like Frankenstein. And that meant all sorts of projects featuring the stars in this photo from 2017 just pretty much went away, including Bride of Frankenstein with Javier Bardem and possibly Angelina Jolie, an Invisible Man film starring Johnny Depp, and no doubt Russell Crowe reprising his role of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde from The Mummy. So the new plan, or pivot if you will, is to focus more on filmmakers bringing their own unique approach to these characters in standalone films. So think less Marvel and more like DC's latest move with the standalone hit Joker. This also means steering away from big budgets, which rarely works in horror anyway. And that's why with a budget of just $9 million for The Invisible Man, its strong opening weekend of $29 million at the US box office was a huge win for a man you can't see.
He's not dead. He has figured out a way to be invisible.
So, what does the success of The Invisible Man mean for the future of this new filmmaker-driven dark universe? Well, more standalone stories from big-time names for one. A new original project called Dark Army is reportedly in the works, written and directed by Paul Feig, and featuring a mix of classic Universal monsters and original characters. So, like the Avengers of the Dark Universe. There's also the Dracula theme Renfield, with Rocketman director Dexter Fletcher attached, and according to Variety, Oscar-nominated producer Amy Pascal is now the one trying to bring the Bride of Frankenstein back to the big screen. Can we bring back her hairstyle too, please? And completely unrelated to The Invisible Man is The Invisible Woman, with Elizabeth Banks set to direct and star in. Tonally, it's being described as Thelma and Louise meets American Psycho, which means it's gonna be awesome. But while The Invisible Woman won't be connected to The Invisible Man, not to give too much away, the latter does leave the door open for an Invisible sequel. So any potential confusion would need to be sorted out. And at this point, both Elizabeth Moss and writer-director Leigh Whannell have said that they haven't given a sequel much thought yet. In other words, let's just wait and see how much money this movie makes.
Surprise.
Yo, we have our first look at the new Batmobile for next year's The Batman, and we're kind of freaking out. So just like we did after we saw the new Batsuit and heard about the film's cast, we're gonna take a look at the new whip and tell you what it tells us about The Batman on the Ketchup. You guys, Matt Reeves has done it again. Do we think he's just uploading pics from his phone like, yeah, I'm about to burn the internet up right now? Totally. I mean, no complaints here, because just like the suit, this time Reeves dropped photos of the new Batmobile, the most iconic symbol of Batman. And it's basically like a Lamborghini Miura drift car, which is arguably the greatest compliment you can give a vehicle. My boss Jimmy told me to say that, and it totally does. Reactions on Twitter are of course a little bit split, with some users totally loving it and others not so much. Erica on Facebook said, looks as if the guys from Fast and the Furious delivered the car to Bruce Wayne. I feel like it looks like Bruce took the Batmobile to West Coast Customs and Exhibit was like, yo dog, we heard you like braking, so we put red brake lights on your car.
You know who I am and you know what I came to do. Let's do it.
Okay, so what does this new version of the Batmobile tell us about The Batman, which opens in June of 2021? Well, looking back at previous Batman films, the Batmobile is one of the main things that represents the overall tone of a Batman movie, even more so than the Batsuit or the utility belt. Take a look at the Michael Keaton Tim Burton era Batmobile from 1989's Batman and 1992's Batman Returns. Bruce's ride was very sleek and dark, and for the time a bit eccentric, which in a lot of ways mirrors those movies. But then came the Val Kilmer and George Clooney era with Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, where the Batmobile went from being a little campy to flat out cheesy. Not to mention, oh so very 90s. But like Robin once said, chicks dig the car, including this one.
This is why Superman works alone.
When Christopher Nolan took over the franchise with Christian Bale as Bruce, the Batmobile from Batman Begins and The Dark Knight had a military feel and was more about using technology to optimize peak performance and pretty much looked like something Dan Bilzerian would drive.
Nice ride.
And of course, we have Batflick's Batmobile from Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice and Suicide Squad. This thing was just a rough tumble-killing machine, kind of like Ben Affleck's Batman, but I gotta wonder, does it bleed? Can we just put Ben's voice over mine?
Dear Blade.
So that brings us to the latest version of the Batmobile, which feels pretty vintage and close to the OG Adam West Batmobile, which was sick and kind of just looked like the car that was decked out. This makes sense because we're going to be seeing a younger Batman in this movie that's just starting out and doing everything on his own. And much like the new Batsuit, this car is pretty stylish and almost feels like they lifted Batman off the cover of Esquire, and I am here for it. So it's not surprising that, and remember this for trivia night, the new Batmobile was done by designer Ash Thorpe, a guy with some serious cult status after working on films like Blade Runner 2049. Plus, he's got his own new DeLorean design, so let Tom Holland know that the Back to the Future reboot officially needs to happen. Tag Tom.
What?
And while we're talking Bat vehicles, set photos that were snapped recently of the new Bat Cycle show a more modest approach to this Batman's vehicles. A far cry from the two-wheeled ride that carried the name Bat Pod in the Christian Bale films. As far as how this car compares to the long line of cinematic Batmobiles before it, we posed that question in our Facebook fan group, and Addison said, I really like the more simplistic look. I'm excited to see a potentially grounded and somewhat realistic portrayal. I agree with you, Addison. I mean, let's get Joaquin Phoenix's Joker in there, 2024.
Got nothing left to lose?
Happy International Women's Day. In honor of the day, we're celebrating just a fraction of all the incredible work done by women in film behind the camera as we bring you guys 5 of the best female-directed films of the 21st century right now on the Ketchup. Just so you know, our full list of the best female-directed movies of the 21st century is at RottenTomatoes.com, so go check that out. And then while you're there, open up your Facebook tab and join our fan group so we can talk about the list. But here are some highlights from it just to get the conversation going. Starting with one that is pretty wonderful because it's Wonder Woman, directed by Patty Jenkins. We don't need the lasso of truth to know that this film kicked ass at the box office. It made over $821 million worldwide and kicked ass with both critics and fans. Like audience member Margot Q, who said no words to describe how powerful and remarkable this movie is. Thank you, DC, Patty Jenkins, and Gal Gadot. I mean, Wonder Woman was a game changer for female-led superhero films. This was Patty's first time ever doing a big-budget action movie in her 14-year career, and she knocked it out of the park. And lucky for us, she's back as the director and writer of Wonder Woman 1984, coming out this June. I'll just have to keep rewatching those Super Bowl Tide commercials until then.
We won't be doing that today.
Tomorrow.
Also, landing on our list is Greta Gerwig's 2017 hit Lady Bird, and I should also mention that Gerwig's film Little Women that came out this past year was also a huge success. But Lady Bird is what put Gerwig on the filmmaking map with Oscar nominations for Best Picture, Directing, and Screenplay, and going forward, she will be bringing her magic to a live-action feature film based on Barbie. Don't know if it'll be wrapped in plastic, but I do know it'll be fantastic.
Who are you?
Another great film on this list is director Ava DuVernay's Selma from 2014. It was nominated for a Best Picture Oscar and tells the story of Martin Luther King Jr. and the tragic events leading up to one of the most significant victories in the civil rights movement for equal voting rights. But DuVernay is no stranger to directing certified fresh films. She won top honors at Sundance in directing for 2012's Middle of Nowhere and went on to direct the Emmy-winning and Oscar-nominated documentary 13th in 2016. Another great one from RT's list of the best female-directed films of the 21st century is Kathryn Bigelow's The Hurt Locker. This war action thriller from 2009 earned Bigelow a Best Directing Oscar, and it became the first ever female-directed film to win an Oscar for Best Picture. Insane that it took that long. After that, Bigelow went on to direct the Oscar-nominated Zero Dark 30, which starred Jessica Chastain, who was nominated for Best Actress.
Who are you?
That found this place, sir.
And finally, before we ride on out here, we gotta talk about the writer-director Chloe Zhao's hit from 2018, The Rider. This film is based on a true story about a rising rodeo star whose career is cut short after a tragic riding accident. After The Rider became a hit with both fans and critics, Zhao was officially a rising star in filmmaking, enough so that she was hired to direct the highly anticipated Marvel movie Eternals, coming out later this year. From cowboys to superheroes, I can't say I'm not jealous.
Director of Eternals, Chloe Zhao.
right, friends, thanks for tuning in to the Weekly Ketchup on YouTube. Make sure you tap that subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes of The Ketchup. As always, I'm Naz Perez, and we'll see you guys next week.